I don't know whether I can say I found my purpose, but in 2008 in Cyprus, I was involved in a near fatal car accident. I was bedridden in hospital. They told me I wouldn't walk again. And that, I think, was the best thing that could have happened to me, because that was the turning point. And I took up my phone because I was going to record the session. And they said, you can record it, but what we're about to tell you, you'll remember for the rest of your life. There's a lot of reasons. One of them is obviously to embrace the Cypriots of the diaspora, because I think we need to give credit there where it's due. These individuals are our torchbearers, our flag bearers. They offer free product placement overseas. They talk about Cyprus with that passion that the diaspora only know. So we wanted to approach something from a business side of things, and how we could basically attract more investment into Cyprus, because one of the things that we are seeing and we're very concerned about is that
Welcome to Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and the reason I launched this podcast is to create a ripple effect of optimism that reaches 1 billion people in the next decade. Ambitious? Very. Scary? A little bit. The aim of Present Potential is to empower listeners by sharing stories of individuals who've turned challenges into opportunities, proving that we all have untapped potential. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you've tuned in before, thank you for your support, and I hope you find value in these conversations. Welcome to another episode of Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and I'm so thankful and grateful for everyone to tuning in and joining us and commenting and following the journey. Today, we are really privileged to have a guest with us, and I'm gonna try to do an introduction as I usually do, but obviously I'm already setting up for failure, so I will ask him to introduce himself. But without further ado, let me start by trying to introduce the guest. I'm interviewing today Paul Lambis. Paul is originally from Cyprus. He's a story writer, an author, a director, a producer. The list goes on and on and on and on. He's won awards for his stories. He organizes the Cyprus Diaspora, which happens every year in Cyprus. He's a genuinely great person. I was so privileged and honored that he was open to being on the podcast. And as I usually do, I'm going to ask him as well. So, Paul,
Thank you so much.
And please forgive my introduction, which I'm sure that I missed a lot of things.
No. I think you've blown a trumpet here, and the only thing is I'm waiting for the fanfare. But thank you so much, Hassan. It's such a pleasure to be here, and really just to be in your presence. I've also been an admirer of your work.
Thank you.
Which is why I also reached out to you, wanting, and getting you on board with the forum. But it's really great just to connect and to meet up with people that are doing such amazing things. And congrats on the podcast as well.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. So maybe we could start by, Paul, how would you describe yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one. How would I describe myself? I think I like putting my fingers in every pie, literally and metaphorically. I just love doing things that, let's just put it this way. I love connecting with people. I think the most important thing that we have is this connection, and you never know where one connection may lead to. This morning I was sitting with an aspiring young music artist who's 14 years old and is about to break into the Cypriot scene. And now I'm sitting this afternoon with you, and you're telling me a little bit about your story. I think it's an incredible thing, connecting with people and watching where that path will take you, with them or without, or just learning from one another. I mean, at the end of the day, life is one big learning curve, and drawing from everybody's good things and bad things is what I think makes us, people. Yeah, so I don't know, I wouldn't be able to sum myself up in one word, because I think we also go through different chapters in life. So when you're looking for one specific thing, you tend to steer towards maybe what your parents encouraged you to follow, or they instilled a certain belief system within you. Or at the end of the day, you adapt to different environments. Like, when we relocated to Cyprus, things took on a different meaning and a different understanding and appreciating life. And then you follow another path, another journey. But I think we evolving. So how would I sum myself up? As a person that's constantly evolving, connecting with people, and just expanding this family that I call, connection.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that connection and evolving and expanding. It sounds so inspiring as well. And from just reading about the things that you've done, maybe we could start from where you also kind of mentioned what parents or like families would encourage their children to be. What was it like when you were growing up?
Complicated, because I think my wife sums it up in the right way. She says I'm a disruptor, but I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I was born in South Africa. I grew up in South Africa. We grew up at a time where it was during the apartheid regime, and obviously at the time we didn't understand anything. I was a spoiled little Cypriot boy that was put into an English school it's a monastic, which was all boys. Trained to, be very disciplined, but then on the weekends, the black sheep would emerge. I think if my parents said it would be A, I did the B, which is why I connected with my wife, because she was the same type of a personality. But yet, just to be on the serious side, I think my parents instilled all the beliefs that we have. They laid the foundation, and I'm forever, grateful for what they've done and the opportunities that they gave us, because my father left Cyprus when he was 16. He left during the war, and, he basically wanted to give a better life for his family, which is what he did. My mother's a second generation Cypriot who was born in South Africa. So we had the balance, and that was actually very nice. Understanding the mindset of a 100% Cypriot with the old school mentality, and the mindset of someone that was trying to adapt to a more westernized environment. I had the best of both worlds. So without rambling on, basically life was just following our culture, following our heritage, studying at the British school, but then at the same time going to Greek school every day. The culture was forced upon us so that we never forget that we Greek. Well, we say Greek, but Greek Cypriot. And then obviously understanding the story of Cyprus. I was born in 74, which is a milestone year for the island, in a bad way, obviously, because we had the invasion. But that was constantly embedded within us. And we grew up sort of like loving Cyprus in a foreign country, trying to carve your own path, mark your identity. It is very difficult, especially when you're living in a country like South Africa, which is very multicultural, and you're trying to establish an identity that I'm also Greek and Cypriot, and then half the time they don't know where Cyprus is, and you have to explain. I think the recent thing was it looks like a stingray floating in the Mediterranean. But life in South Africa was great. Grew up at, we went through the schools, finished, studied at university. I opted for graphic design, studied marketing as well, and advertising. But there was always this yearning of doing something bigger within the theatre world, within the film industry, journalism. So I took on various courses. I did all those things. But then my wife came along and she disrupted my path. So we got married, had a kid, and came to Cyprus. So I think that would sum it up. Oh, wow. And then obviously Cyprus took a different path on its own, It's great living here. It's a wonderful island, a lot of opportunities. I love the way it's become so multicultural that every corner you turn, there's just a different culture, and you pick up on that. So yes, I think I've said enough. I don't know if you want to find out more.
Well, maybe when you were growing up in South Africa, and also with your family, keeping like the Greek roots, and also going to Greek school in the afternoon, how was it? Because the reason I'm asking is I'm originally from Yemen, and I live in Cyprus. And at home, we speak Greek and English. And I'm looking at ways to help my kids learn Arabic. So I'm just curious, like, how was it at home? Like, what language did you speak? And
As I said, my father's a first generation Cypriot, so the communication with him was directly in Greek, and it had to be in Greek, otherwise there'd be consequences. I think with my mom being a second generation Cypriot, it was always and English being our first language with school. We would communicate in English, and sooner or later my dad would sort of give way. But the fact that we were forced to go to Greek school, and I say forced because we didn't like Greek school. We thought it was a big waste of time. But if only we could look back now and say how important those days were to pick up another language, because someone that wants to learn Greek nowadays finds it, very alien. But, just to growing up as a Greek in South Africa was easy at times, but it was also very difficult. We grew up during the apartheid era, so obviously we were considered the non-whites. It was always very much about black or white. So we were the non-whites, we were the Europeans. Whether that was acceptable or not, I don't know, excuse me, but having been brought up in that society where sometimes people are embracing your culture, sometimes they're not, fighting a political system that we never knew existed, because as non-black, we were sheltered from the whole apartheid system. But politics aside, it was very difficult trying to maintain that culture. And that's where I give credit to my parents, because if they didn't force it on us, we would have grown up as, second generation or third generation, depending on the way you look at it, Cypriots, not being able to communicate correctly, maybe not as connected to the motherland as we were, because we followed the traditions, the customs. Every public holiday was respected, whether it was a South African one, whether it was a Greek one. And because being part of the Greek school, the traditions were maintained. Religion was a very important part of the family. So obviously catechism classes, church on a Sunday. But because I feel when you're in a foreign country, the communities tend to stick together and the connections are much stronger. So it's much easier to maintain your roots abroad rather than when you come to Cyprus and then suddenly you realize that I'm living in a country where Greek is all around us and the traditions aren't maintained as strong as they were, in the diaspora. And that's why the diaspora is also embedded within my DNA. It's a very important part of my life because a lot of people don't realize the strength of the diaspora. And I don't necessarily mean the Cypriots of the diaspora. I'm talking about diaspora in general. At the end of the day, we nomads. We always constantly asking, where is home? That is, obviously the title of one of my books. And now in Cyprus, I feel that I am a Cypriot. I was born in South Africa. So am I part of the Cypriot diaspora or am I part of the South African diaspora? Likewise, you questioning, are you, the diaspora from Yemen? Aren't you? It's a very complicated situation. But at the end of the day, the impact that the diaspora have on foreign countries is huge. And that's why we developed a forum, which I'll get to later, which also embraces the non-Cypriots that are living and working in Cyprus, that are advocating for Cyprus to their respective countries. So they're an extended arm of that diaspora. And it's a very important part because at the end of the day, we're all one big family working to promote Cyprus. You have your networks, I have my networks, and we're always talking about Cyprus. Sooner or later, someone's going to ask you where you're living. And then they go, Cyprus. And then when they give you that expression, Cyprus, you're going to sit there for 20 minutes telling them why Cyprus. So the diaspora then are the perfect free product placement that we need for Cyprus, which is why I keep saying to the Ministry of Tourism, embrace the diaspora. But we'll get to that later. I mean, basically, growing up Greek in South Africa had its good days, its bad days, but I'm proud to be a member of the Greek community. In South Africa, of course, we didn't differentiate between Greek or Cypriot. It was just the Hellenic community.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a Hellene. I'm proud to be back in Cyprus, where my parents and my grandparents are originally from. And I'm happy to be making my own mark in the way I feel. It's impacting a few people. If it impacts just one, I'm happy. But I'm happy to be contributing. So back to your question. I now ramble on a lot, so you can tell me to keep quiet at any
Not
stage.
at all. I'm interested.
I think the most important thing, it stems from the parents.
Yeah.
It's up to you how connected you are to your roots and how much of those or how much of that connectedness you want to impart to your kids. I think it's very important for them to learn Arabic. So I would, make sure that they learn it.
Yeah.
It's very important to find the common ground that connected you with your wife so that they understand that too. And I think when they understand that there's that common ground that brings two different cultures together, that it makes them better people because they're more accepting to other cultures and to other beliefs. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have today, is that people are not as accepting. I know that there's two different sides of the coin. There's the extreme stupidity that's out there, which I don't want to go into detail. And then we've got the logic that's out there. I'm not saying that those people that have their own ideas, that I could see them as stupid, they don't see them as that.
Yeah.
But I think just understanding where they're coming from, or them understanding where we are coming from, is what we need.
Absolutely. And I can sense like all that connection, and also embracing the expansive way that you see people in the network and bringing everyone together. And we'll definitely talk about the Diaspora Forum as well. And at that point, so you're growing up in South Africa, you're also being, you're embracing the Hellenic side of your identity, and also growing up there. What did you want to study? What did you want to be when you were growing up there, even before you started deciding, or was it part of the decision?
Okay, well, I was a big, overweight Greek boy stuck in a British school, trying to listen to what my teachers were, encouraging me to do sport. Clearly, you can see I'm not a sports enthusiast. I was more drama and debating and all that. And then going back home, where it was like sort of decided that, yes, Paul needs to do graphic design because it will bring in the money. Obviously, understanding my dad's viewpoint, because he came from a war-torn country. He had to endure hardship and poverty, and to eventually get to where he got. He didn't want that for us. So obviously we had the grounding, the education. So he said, look at graphic design as an option. To be honest, I love art. So I thought, great, it's a combination of marketing, advertising. I did do a few, I can't remember what they were called. They're not IQ. What were they called? Anyway, where you go and you find out what career you should pursue.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, it did come up. Architecture was another thing. Drama, journalism, radio, and all that came up, which is very strong.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can't go back and tell my father that I want to be on TV acting or writing scripts, because he's going to say I'm going to star for the rest of my life, which might have worked in my favor, actually. So I opted for graphic design. So I studied graphic design, got into the advertising industry, loved it. But there was always that calling for going back to your passion.
Yeah.
And I think, in those days we used to call it your hobby. And I think that's a terrible word. A hobby is maybe collecting stamps or building model airplanes. Pursuing your passions is what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And, we all know that nowadays a lot of people are experiencing mental anguish. They're going through very difficult times. Perhaps the world's become a bit too sensitive. I don't know. But I thought, if I pursue my passions simultaneously to my career, I could then justify working and earning a salary, supporting a family, but at the same time, if something else takes off, it does. It's almost like, I have this theory that, when you go down to Katopafo, to the marina, you see an old fisherman and suddenly there's about 7 fishing rods.
Yeah.
And you think, well, that's the concept of life. He's not just using one fishing rod and waiting all day for that one fish to bite that particular rod.
Yeah.
He has 7, so his options are bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same way we should look at life. Put your finger in every pie, pursue your passions, have a steady income, but then at the end of the day, they might become, your income streams, and they're not just one, now they're suddenly many. So I think that, my advice would be pursue your dreams. Don't listen to people, because their experiences might encourage or discourage. Follow your passion, be strategic about it, because at the end of the day, you need to know what the long term is to whatever you do. So I gave in to my father. I accepted the fact that I want to do advertising and marketing, but I got involved with the radio. I got involved with television. I was even dressed as a Muppet on one of the TV shows, because, the main character was 6. I was a dog bouncing around. I did backstage design. I got involved very much in theatre, drama, journalism. I was writing for the Greek newspaper in South Africa, and then obviously for one of the English papers. And then the one thing led to the other, which is why I said opportunity comes. And I published my first book in South Africa, which was listed in the Sunday Times, not as a bestseller, but one of the most credible books of the time, which, is based on a story that's related to Cyprus. And then I just parked it. And I thought, what, marriage came, we pursued other goals, started a business that was, promoting our culture, bringing in Greek music, keeping up with all the traditions, and I even did DJing at one stage.
Wow.
So I got very involved in the Greek community, and then obviously I was part of the Hellenic community as well. So when the opportunity came to march to commemorate the invasion of Cyprus, and the first opportunity came to march in South Africa from the Greek Orthodox Church in Pretoria to the Turkish embassy, I jumped at the opportunity because I thought this would connect us more to Cyprus. It doesn't mean that I don't want a solution. It doesn't mean that I hate anybody, because I don't hate anybody. I just feel that it's strange how, now I'm bringing the politics in. We can sit and have a cup of coffee with a Turkish Cypriot and laugh away. In fact, some of my friends are Turkish Cypriots. And yet when we talk about the Cyprus issue, it's like, no, it's your fault, no, it's my fault, no, it's your fault. Anyway, I don't want to get into that, because I've also written a screenplay about 74. But yeah, then I pursued that, and then we came to Cyprus because South Africa went through the apartheid and then post-apartheid. Obviously, apartheid was abolished, Nelson Mandela was freed. We went through a very beautiful era at that time, and it was great to experience it, where everybody just sort of forgot the past and it was living the present. We had the Rugby World Cup. Everybody got on board with that. It didn't matter whether you were black, white, it didn't matter about your religion, your sexual orientation. It was just one big happy family. And then I don't know where it went wrong. Suddenly South Africa became the crime capital of the world, the rape capital of the world. And I think, again, like I said, when you're at a stage in your life when you start looking at things differently, here I was now married with a 2-year-old child, living in a beautiful home that was a fort. We had, barbed wire fencing outside, electric fencing, yet they still managed to break into our home, and we were living in a very corrupt society. So when you have a child, I think you look at things differently, and we opted for Greece because my wife is of Greek descent, but something was saying Cyprus, and luckily we chose Cyprus. And I remember when we came in 2002, it was still before the European Union, and having come to Cyprus so many times on holiday, it was that authentic, traditional Cypriot life. I mean, we moved to Buffalo, even though our family's from Limassol, but we wanted just that antithesis of that jungle that we were living in called Johannesburg to a very quieter pace of life. But there was too quiet, and I couldn't cope with that. And I remember even on the weekend, we had to drive all the way from Buffos to Limassol just to take our child to KFC.
Oh, wow.
Now they're going to say we're advocating for junk food. But I mean, it was just crazy. And then as you adapt, and then as you start meeting people and connecting, and your path just becomes limitless.
Yeah.
And then you other people will take you there, and some will take you here. And then obviously there's people that you do away with because they're not bringing out the best in you. And eventually you find your purpose. Now, I don't know whether I can say I found my purpose, but in 2008 in Cyprus, I was involved in a near fatal car accident. I was bedridden in hospital. They told me I wouldn't walk again. And that, I think, was the best thing that could have happened to me, because that was the turning point. And that said, you know what, time is limited and you have to start, giving back and creating meaning. And that's the most important thing. And I think someone actually said to me, when you die, what do you want your tombstone to read? Because obviously the next generation will remember you.
Yeah.
But the following will just walk across the park and say, who was Paul Lambis?
Yeah.
And then you question that and you think, okay, well, I know that I'm not going to be remembered for eternity. I get that, because I'm not going to invent the light bulb or something that's going to resonate with generations after. But I do want to give back.
Yeah.
And if I can connect people, and if I can, provide meaning or get them to the next stage of their lives through events, through the work that we do, through the theatrical productions, through the films that we do, why not? So I think that sums up my journey back to Cyprus,
That's incredible. Like, there's so many things there, and from authoring your first book to trying different things, to going to stage, to dressing up as one of the Muppets, to step in because somebody was not there. And also like the challenges that you went through, and relocating and having a 2-year-old and in a fortress, as it sounds as well. And what I'm hearing as well is that there is a lot of passion, that everything that you're doing is revolved around finding not just that hobby or thing that you find exciting or engaging, but something that's really a passion that you want to continue doing. And then that turns it into a purpose, which it sounds like you're still living it and doing it as well at the same time. I'm glad that you're okay after that horrific car crash. And maybe just touching on that, like the purpose and the passion as well. And when that switch happened, what was it that really motivated you to find more to give or to do or to connect, especially after you went through that experience with the car crash?
It's a good question, but the thing is, I just want to go back to what you said. It's like, having a passion, but then turning it into purpose. I think the most important thing to realize that, we can all sit down and list our goals for the year.
Yeah.
But you also need a support system, and that support system needs to push you to break through those barriers or borders or boundaries. Because as human beings, we tend to put ourselves into a comfort zone. So we might start off the year saying we're going to do A, B, C, D, and then we realize after January, maybe halfway through A. And if you don't have someone constantly saying you can do it, that's why, this is something I also understand, that if you want to lose weight, you need someone to motivate you or to be there every step of the way. Someone needs to do something. They need that encouragement. It takes a village. So I'd say for me, having a wife that's very supportive, that can sometimes be very not, she doesn't take pity parties, which is the good thing about her, is that when the accident happened, I had my mother who was like, my baby's dying, and, crying all over me and giving me that support. But I don't think that's the support you need nowadays. I had my mother doing that every day, and then my wife coming in the evening after work saying, get up, you can walk. It's time you stop feeling sorry for yourself, and I don't take to pity parties. So that strength that you need comes from different people. Yes, my mother gave me that emotional support. My wife does give me the emotional support, but she gave me also that push that I needed to, okay, enough now. You've got to get up. And then there was also this other person who's passed away, who I actually dedicated my second book to. When she came to visit me in hospital, she said to me, it's an opportunity for you not to just lie in this bed. And I was at the general hospital with no TV or internet, bear in mind. So I experienced 11 neighbors in that ward, who took me everything from making plastics to fighting the British. So I experienced that as well. So it was a good taste of history. But she came to visit me one day with my favorite cup of Starbucks, if we can do product placement in a podcast. And she said to me, it's your perfect opportunity to write and document your experiences now, because they could help somebody that's might go through a similar experience. And I thought, okay, might as well make good use of it. But then I started writing and I realized, for me to start this chapter of where I am, I need to go right back to the beginning to understand where I came from and where I want to go. And everybody knows I have this passion for London. London's my go-to place if I want to forget, if I want to disconnect with the world and just experience a bit of history and culture and all that. But of course, all the history and culture that's there has been taken from other countries, but we won't, that's another podcast. The most important thing for me was that I started doing this journey of self-discovery. And I went right through the beginning. So you experience birth, growing up Greek, growing up as a white boy in South Africa. Was I privileged? Wasn't I? Was I spoiled? Wasn't I? Questions, asking all these questions. And then eventually leading up to the point of the accident. And I was actually at a place in my life that I think I needed I needed the change. I needed to turn away from what I was doing. Not that I was doing horrible things, but I just needed another sense of direction. And I think the accident allowed me, because, half the time we always say, I wish I could just escape and go to some island and sit there for 3-4 weeks and nobody's going to bother me. Well, we are living on an island. I said, well, and here's your opportunity. You're going to be in this bed for months. So you're either going to listen to the experiences of a 78-year-old guy who used to wake me up at 2 a.m, pretending he had a machine gun, or you're going to write your own story. So I thought, you know what? Everybody has a story to tell. And it's very important that they tell it. And it doesn't matter. I think because we live in a society that says your story needs to be a bestseller, that's absolute rubbish. Anne Frank was locked up in a little cupboard, hiding away from the Nazis. And her diary, which served as a purpose of just helping her get through the war, is now one of the most famous books in the world. So everybody has the opportunity. And even if they, as I said, if they make an impact on one individual, they've made a difference. There's so many examples. So I felt that this book would be the way I could give back, take people on that journey, whether they laugh or they cry. I believe in self-sarcasm. Everybody is given something. I'm sitting in a very big body at the moment, and sometimes I can, feel that there's a lot of people trapped in here. This is why I have a huge airbag. But at the end of the day, we have to accept what we have, and then you either accept it and move on, or you fight it and you stay stuck. So accepting is moving, and the sooner you accept it and you get on with it, you'll see that a lot of things actually start healing on their own. And that's what happened with me through this book, because this book turned into a stand-up comedy series, which we went around the island, talking about it and laughing. And I did a stand-up show.
Wow.
And the things that I did on that stage, I think should stay on that stage, because I think I've marked myself for life for those that came and saw it. But it was a series of sold-out comedy shows, and it did very well. But that, of course, led to the next chapter, which was, somebody that was in the audience offered me to come and write a script for one of the television networks. And while we were working on a pilot episode, which we were filming, and, it happened to be in July, and it was on the day of that marked the invasion of Cyprus. And I looked at all these actors, and they were all Cypriots, and I was the only the Cypriot of the diaspora. And I said, have we got anything about 1974 that is in English, so that the non-Greek community can understand our point of view? Of course, there's two sides of the story. And they all looked at each other and they said, yes, there's a few documentaries out there. And even recently there was a series made, on the invasion. But I still feel that nothing has been done to give the voice to the Greek Cypriots abroad. And I thought, okay, maybe it's an opportunity for me to write a script, based on the invasion of 1974. But of course, I'm not one of those that wants to bring the political, make politics the center of the play or the production, where, people are going to say, no, you fired the first shot, I fired the first shot, but these events led to that event. And, it's not about who's to blame. It's about the consequences of war on human life.
Yeah.
And it was a complete opposite to what I'd done, because my life was a comedy. My motto is, if you don't laugh at life, life will laugh at you. And suddenly I was dealing with a very serious subject matter, and I needed to find out the truth, or at least as far as the truth I could get.
Yeah.
So I started interviewing a lot of people, and mainly refugees. And I was getting a similar story from the Greek Cypriot side. So I thought, okay, well, I've got to interview Turkish Cypriots that also experienced the war. And I started getting their side of the story. But they were all common threads, because we lived, I'd like to say lived, in a society that was very male-dominated. Cyprus is very different now. But all these women that experienced the war, who I look at as steel magnolias, they warriors, these women, had to be subservient, so they could only talk about the war through the experiences of their husband. So that was the common thread on both sides, is that all the women would say, well, my husband fought, my husband did, my husband this, we lost people, etc., etc. And the unity that the Turks and the Greeks had before the war. So that was the common ground, and I thought, well, I can't write a story about that. And I happened to interview this couple in Nicosia, and again, the same story. The man was going on about fighting and what he did, and her body language was, it was not looking towards her husband. It was almost facing in another direction. So I spoke to her, and I said, if there's anything you want to share with me, and of course I had my journalist cap on, but I wanted to make her feel comfortable that she could share her story with me, and that if she wanted that story to be made public, I would, to honor her. And she, at the time, she said, no, whatever, my husband said, that's it. And then she called me a few days later, and she said, please come and meet me, but don't come to my house. So I went to a friend's house, and I walked into this room, and there were about 50 women that were gathered under this roof. And I took out my phone, because I was going to record the session. And they said, you can record it, but what we're about to tell you, you'll remember for the rest of your life. And to this day, there's not one day that goes by that I don't think about the stories that I heard in that room from both sides of the fence, Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots. But the idea of the story, because I needed an angle to put a production on, came when I separated the women in groups. So whoever was from Gerinia sat in one corner, whoever was from Morfu in another corner, from Varosi and the Turkish Cypriots in another corner. And I looked at it, and it looked quite balanced. There were 10, 15 Turkish Cypriots, 10, 15 of each other relevant group. And I started seeing that the stories from each region had similarities, but yet they were all different. And I thought, that's it. That's the angle. I'm going to write a screenplay based on the experiences that these women had under 4 protagonists, and each one represents a town that is under occupation. Because even the Turkish Cypriot women felt they're still occupied, because they've got the north, but they don't have anything else.
Yeah.
So the story emerged that I had these protagonists, they symbolic women. Their stories are all merged under one character. So you've got Gerinia, Morfu, Varosha, and Girne. Yeah. And then I thought the best way to approach the subject is to show it to the Greek Cypriot community in English.
In English,
because obviously the whole world needs to see it in English, and they get to see both sides of the story. And we staged the theatrical production, and it was a brave thing to do, because it was at the time when Cyprus was going through the economic crisis. And all our sponsors were just pulling out. So we had to fund it ourselves. But again, the response was phenomenal. And I thought, you know what, that's a great opportunity because we got to see the way the Greek Cypriot community perceived it in English, which is exactly how the foreign community would see it. Yeah. And I thought, okay, it's time maybe just to take a few of the mistakes and fix it up and write it as a screenplay, which is what I did. And I remember months sitting at my computer and just carving out the screenplay, but it seemed to take, you know, it took shape and it fell into place, and obviously rechecking facts because the story touches on the events where, you know, we can't deny that Turkey invaded. We can't deny the pre-1974 invasion, but it doesn't focus on those. Yeah. It focuses on war as a backdrop, but the human life and the consequences of women and children in war, which is very relevant today. So I wrote the screenplay and I thought, okay, it's done. At least I owe it to all these women because I never mentioned their names, but I merged them as characters and I said, I'm going to lodge it now in the Screenwriters Guild of Greece and in America and in the UK, get a license number so it's there and you never know what can happen. Yeah. And I got a call from the Screenwriters Guild of Greece who said they had read the play, the screenplay, and they'd like to award it as best screenplay, which obviously it was second prize. But for me, the acknowledgement of being in a room with professionals from Greece, now obviously some people might say, of course, Greece is going to give it to you because, and then obviously it won another prize, again, the screenplay, which was Best International Screenplay. It was judged by a German jury. And then I got a call the one night from a very famous production company in Hollywood who said that they had just read my script and they wanted to produce the film. And at first I thought it was my friends that were joking and I closed the phone, to be honest. But then, you know, they phoned me again and then we started communication and one thing led to the other. And we got to the point where we were actually auditioning people for this production, which was about to take place. COVID hits. So you think, you know, okay, fine, because in life there's always challenges, you know. Sometimes I seem to say, you know, maybe God doesn't have Netflix and he's just playing his buttons on us. I don't know, but anyway, but no, he's he's there, and I'm grateful. And yeah, so COVID hit, so we had to park that. And then through COVID came another opportunity, which was my show Culturescope. So we could go around showing the hidden gems of Cyprus, interviewing people, Zoom calls, and you know, of course, it was wonderful because, again, we were connecting, whether we were in person or whether we were via online. And the one thing led to the other, and then we were back on track with the film eventually, with different investors now and everything. So we're in development at the moment with the movie. Wow. It's a very big production. It's going to happen here in Cyprus. We're very excited about it. Of course, I can't say too much, but we've got a healthy budget. It's a beautiful film. The message is basically that we're all flowers, but we grow, you know, we're all different flowers, but we grow in the same garden, which is very much plays on the jasmine, which you'll see when the movie comes out and why. Wow. So yeah, you know, that was the one thing. And then obviously, you know, the business side of things, I just wanted to see how we could engage the Cypriots of the diaspora, because through Culturescope, I got to interview a lot of the Cypriots. And I'm very tired of the narrative that Cyprus is just a sun and sea destination. Yeah. There's so much happening here. Yeah. I mean, really, there's like people from Yemen that are here. Yeah. There's a whole IT sector. There's a tech industry going crazy. The film industry is growing. A very good friend of mine, Stellana, who produced Find Me Falling. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, these are the things that are happening in Cyprus, in this little island.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, you know, dynamite comes in small packages. Imagine how impactful it would be if we changed that narrative overseas. Because, the high net worth individuals of Cyprus, the pioneers that are excelling in so many industries and sectors, if they go about within their networks saying, oh, but Cyprus isn't just about Ayanapa and, the horrible beaches of Limassol because Paphos is better. It's not going to say that. It's going to say, do you know what's happening in Cyprus? Do you know that there's a guy who's a Greek Cypriot in Australia who's developed a plant-based company that's Tokyo just invested billions in. There's another Cypriot who's the CEO of Google Mind that's about to get a Nobel Peace Prize. There's another Cypriot that is a pioneering fetal medicine doctor.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Now, whether they are half Cypriot or they're married to Cypriots or whatever the case may be, the fact is that we've also got non-Cypriots that believe in us, that have come all the way here to Cyprus to set up shop. So we offer something. We must be doing something right.
Yeah.
So yes, every country has its flaws. You can turn and point the finger at everything. It's very easy to point a finger, but it's hard to spot the good things. And because as a culture, we have it in us that we look for the mistakes. Because maybe they taught us at school, find the mistakes and learn from your mistakes. Yeah. I'm saying to everybody, learn from the positive that's happening. And Cyprus is just the place to be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that brings me, to the Diaspora Forum. And as I said, sorry, I'm talking a lot.
Not at all. Like, I'm following your story, and I love that, like the gratitude from that accident, and then writing the book and the screenplay, and then just determining to do more and more. And what I'm hearing is also like, it's that connection that's really driving everything that you're doing, and it's kind of like what I'm hearing is a bit of a mismatch with what people are expecting, or like the environment, the society, because you decided to interview those women to understand their story, even though it might have attracted maybe negative attention, or it was a bit courageous to do that. So still really interested in all of that, and congratulations as well with the production of the movie. I'm really excited as well.
No, it's very exciting because it's a big production team that's coming to Cyprus. I don't want to say too much because I'm very protective over this. And obviously, when I said a lot, then COVID came and knocked on my door, and I thought, okay, now what? But it's very soon. And let's put it this way. I'll be the first to come on your podcast and talk about everything.
My pleasure.
And maybe bring one or two of the famous people that are going to be in it.
For sure. And I'm one of the people that live in Cyprus as well. Like, I see it as a great place to be.
Of course, it's open to a lot of people as well for extras. So if you want to be one of the people running in the distance or sitting at a coffee shop playing tavli, we can put that in the film, and I'll be happy to cast you.
Would love that. It's like what you're saying. You dip your toe in, or you put your finger in different pies. So why not?
But they're all inextricably linked, Hassan, because, like you say to me, how did a guy that went through doing all that, obviously I worked for a lot of real estate companies in Cyprus, two very big ones actually. I was responsible for their branding and their marketing. And part of that, to understand branding and marketing, you need to understand business development. And when you're doing branding and marketing for a real estate company, the biggest question is, why Cyprus? So I was always tired of saying, okay, this list of 340 days of sunshine, to international airports, like blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got that.
Yeah.
How does Cyprus differentiate? And when you sit and you do a why Cyprus now, compared to the why Cyprus we had even 20 years ago when we first came, it's completely different.
Yeah.
You can talk about the filming incentives. You can talk about the tax incentives. Okay, the tax has been an attraction. But look at Cyprus where it is today. Skyscrapers in Limassol, marinas, the development that's going on. In fact, I was even having a discussion with a nice guy from Greece who's also into investment and business development, and he says, you Cypriots have got it right. He says, we still haven't built a skyscraper in Athens. I said, but you've got the Parthenon, you know that. And I think you want to put a skyscraper next to the Parthenon, but you do have a wonderful museum that, you know, maybe I should or shouldn't say it, that needs to house the Parthenon marbles. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, look at what we are doing right. And I know we always have a changing government. And, you know, I always say that the government is doing a fantastic job, but they're always in the line on fire, these poor people, because they're the first people to take the blame. And everybody seems to think, you know, oh, they're not doing a good job. Put yourself in their shoes for one day, and believe me, you wouldn't want that. So, you know, everybody's contributing, whether they're doing it in a big part or a smaller part. It's still one move forward. And we're learning. We have to learn. And now we've got this international community that's here that we need to learn from. You know, I mean, like, why did you come to Cyprus? That's the first thing I asked you. And even Alex, who's behind the scenes, why did he come? And he's been here longer than us. It's, you know, yes, it might not have the infrastructure and the things that all the modern cities have, but you know what? It's unfortunate. Those things can also fall, but Cyprus is taking baby steps and it's building.
Absolutely.
And I'm very proud to call this place my home.
Same.
You know,
Same thing.
it's just wonderful, you know, and that obviously led to the Cyprus Diaspora Forum, because interviewing all these people and understanding that we're tired of hearing that Cyprus has just got the sun and the sea. We thought, okay, let's create an event which will be an extension to what the government does. Because I think the government also has a diaspora event every August where they bring all the communities around the world, but that's very politically oriented, talks about the Cyprus issue, it speaks about the developments, it brings the youth, which is very important. So we wanted to approach something from a business side of things and how we could basically attract more investment into Cyprus. Because one of the things that we are seeing and we're very concerned about is that the next generation is going overseas and studying, and then there's not enough opportunity for them to come back to Cyprus. So the more you attract foreign direct investment, that might sound like a mythological fairy tale, but the more investment that comes into this country, the more opportunities are created. And then that eventually slows the brain drain down, which is why we've also partnered with a lot of credible organizations for the forum. The Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a huge supporter. Invest Cyprus, the Cyprus Research and Innovation Foundation, Tech Island, the Cyprus Business Group, you know, Junior Achievement Cyprus, they're all on board. And obviously JCI, which I mustn't forget to mention, my friend Minos. They're all on board, and a lot of other organizations supporting an event that brings a lot of prominent individuals to the island over 4 days, where you can walk around and speak to them, ask them questions, listen to a panel discussion, what made them the success that they've become, what were the driving factors, you know, what motivated them. And you hear the stories of people that either left the island, you know, literally with like £1 in their pocket, to becoming billionaires overseas and making an impact. And, you know, it's sort of like, you know, you look at it and you go, you know, they Cypriots. Wow. And there's a lot of people like that around the whole world. Some of them don't want to be seen, but we're trying to unearth all of them and bring them to Cyprus. So last year was a huge success. You know, we had a lot of people coming over 4 days. While they were listening and participating in discussions, there was also that connection. It felt like family, it felt like home. People were embracing the Cypriot culture, which culminated to a huge event, the gala dinner, which takes place on the final night, which also is the Cyprus Diaspora Awards, where Cypriots or non-Cypriots from around the world can nominate anybody they feel deserves an award in a various industry. Obviously, they have to explain why. We need to assess the situation, and then that goes to an independent committee that judges that. And this year we decided also to bring a lot of non-Cypriots, because what we saw, there was a huge connection between the local community, whether they are SMEs, large-scale organizations, private individuals, investors, coming together to meet these highly influential people, but also to be mentored to some extent by these individuals. And we thought, let's also bring like non-Cypriots that have a passion for Cyprus. So there's a lot of famous people that are coming this year. They're all on our site at the moment. And obviously there's a few surprises that, like my wife says, are in the box. We shouldn't reveal them yet. So all these people will be revealed in due course. And the most important thing is to partner with local organizations or individuals, whether they're big, they're startups, small, whatever the case is, connect them with all these, with this community that's coming from abroad. But at the same time, to attract foreign direct investment to the country. And how do we do that? We present a holistic forum. It's a forum where you walk into and you get to hear about every industry and sector. The reason why we do that is because we see that investors who come to Cyprus to have a look, they look at, let's say, relocation. So relocation is not just relocating. They're looking at who can support them legally, who can support them, with their financials. They might look to relocate their families. So they're looking at real estate, which brings to education, which leads to the healthcare sector. So all these important things come together. So one is linked with the other. Of course, we're not going to exclude hospitality and tourism, because I'll tell you something, we've traveled all over Europe and South Africa, and I think Cyprus has the best hotels in the world. There are some hotels that can put even the best hotels to shame. Yes, we've got that Mediterranean, but come on, we are, go for a Cypriot breakfast and I'll tell you what we're talking about.
Exactly.
So I think, we've got to give credit there where it's due. So we're not sidelining anything, but we are putting the best of the best forward. So when investors come, they're able to understand, okay, well, yes, it's great for relocation, but like at 1 o'clock, there's a legal sector. So let me go listen there.
That's true.
And then they can make their assessment, and then they approach the local companies that are participating or exhibiting, and they say, I want to hear more. How can you help me? And it's on hand, and that's why it's a success. And of course, we have the government there. The government needs to be there, because when you're talking about the real estate sector, when you're talking about the filming industry, the right people need to be there to also give their input as to what's happening within that sector. So we have a lot of support from the government. They're all coming. And then obviously the other thing is the non-Cypriots that are living and working here. They're an integral part of the diaspora to their respective countries, but they're also a diaspora promoting Cyprus. You can't sideline people that are loving and living and working here. So we include them as part of our diaspora family. And then you've got the ambassadors and the high commissioners, which also want to attend, because they want to meet the people that are living and working here that are from their respective countries. Plus, they also want to meet the foreigners coming from their countries to maybe help with bilateral relations, maybe help with facilitating better business deals and understanding what everybody's doing. So it's a huge family under one roof for 4 days. But this year we've decided first and last day, we'll do like a VIP cocktail event and the gala dinner on the final night, and a lot of social events. So we have a trip, for example, to the Cyprus Historic and Classic Motor Museum, which is a private exhibition in the evening. We have a Greek, Cypriot taverna night at one of the local taverns here in Limassol. We've got a film premiere, which is showing 3 documentaries. One is actually from a Lebanese Greek journalist who's actually one of the heads now at Al-Shohaty TV in the UAE, which is from the Beirut port explosion and how it impacted the Hellenic community there. So that's also going to be screened at the K Cineplex in Limassol. And then we've got a huge golfing event on the Saturday, plus a visit to a winery and wine tasting and all that, because on the Saturday we need to be rehearsing to get the gala dinner out. And of course, it's a televised event, and I just want to thank everybody for jumping on board. It's going to be so amazing this year, from the 7th to the 10th of May. So there, I've done my advertising.
It sounds amazing.
At
And,
the
like,
Amara, yeah.
and there's so much logistics and planning and things that go into it. And I'm still hearing like that connection. You're bringing everyone together, and people who are maybe not Cypriot, but living in Cyprus and working here and contributing, and people who are outside, and like the different types of industries, and bringing everyone together. Like, it's just so clear. And I'm wondering, like, when you created it, like, what was the goal? Like, what was the why, or like the reason that you've created it, and what is it that you want to achieve, or is it even achievable what you want to achieve?
There's a lot of reasons. One of them is obviously to embrace the Cypriots of the diaspora, because I think we need to give credit there where it's due. These individuals are our torchbearers, our flag bearers. They offer free product placement overseas. They talk about Cyprus with that passion that the diaspora only know, because living out of your country makes you yearn for it, and you speak about it. And we all know that, you know, and you'll sit here telling me Yemen is the best place on earth. I'm going to say, no, Cyprus is. And then when I hear South Africa, I go, South Africa is the best place on earth. It is. But at the end of the day, these people have a passion for the country that they love, that it's their ancestral birthplace. They are supporting it wholeheartedly, whether they have bank accounts here, whether they communicate with people and they say, visit Cyprus, or they're bringing people here. They are our best ambassadors abroad, and we need to approach them and embrace them for economic diplomacy, for social diplomacy, and for a lot of other things. Think about it. You don't have to pay for tourism. You can just tell them to promote it, and it's done. Because their networks are huge. So I'm not saying that the smaller communities are not important. They're doing fantastic work to advocate for the Cyprus solution, to talk about Cyprus as a destination. Everybody has a role to play, whether you are small or big. But the whole drive was to bring these people to show off that we have the right people, and that locally we have the talent to support the foreign investment that comes here. I wholeheartedly believe we do. We have the right people in place, whether they are non-Cypriots living and working here, whether they are Cypriots, whether they're Cypriots of the diaspora who've relocated back to Cyprus. We have the talent in place. Now we need to utilize it. So when these foreign investors come and they look around and they say, okay, well, you know what? They do have the support system in place. And that's why it's important for the government to be there to say yes, and we've backed it up by putting this and this and this and this in place. There's a lot of other things. So I think that's the one or two main drivers. The other thing is to create a family of dynamic people that just work and network, and, you know, and to create work opportunities, which, you know, the economic impact report from last year's event proved that we brought a lot of income into the country through the diaspora event, up until even recently with a good investment that's been made through one of these large-scale mixed-use developments. So there's a lot of opportunity coming into the island. And for me, if an event like that can make an impact, you know, and it's also creating job opportunities, and it's connecting Cypriots. One of the guys that came last year, who is a very famous lawyer who's based in the UK, he said to me, make sure, Paul, this year you maintain that Cypriot culture, because everybody felt connected to Cyprus, whether they were part of Cyprus or not. It's almost like, how can I explain it? You know, my best friend is Italian. So when we used to watch Italian football, I was Italian all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's like you want to be part of that culture. And I think Cyprus, and I'm not saying other cultures aren't, we are very hospitable people. And if you don't believe that, come and I'll show you. Hospitality in Cyprus is paramount to every family. You experience it. We've got it in us. And I'm not saying other cultures don't, but you feel it.
You do.
You know what I mean? And I remember they said to me, no one will starve in Cyprus. Just take the walk down, you can pick up 50 oranges from the trees and you've got enough food to eat. But no one will let you starve. I know that I'm painting a pretty picture because there is a community out there. There are people that are really going through difficult times. It's understandable. And obviously it's a pity because I don't like seeing that. I can't play God and be there for everybody, but if we hear, we help. And I think part of the forum is also trying to help not only, very difficult situations. We're also helping a few people that are going through difficult times, but we also want to try and help those people that are, the Cypriots of the diaspora that are finding it very difficult to relocate to Cyprus. And by building this network of connections, it becomes easier because everybody's willing to help. And suddenly these, the Cypriots that are like wanting to come back to Cyprus but cannot, finding it a little bit easier to come back. So as I said, it's just connecting people, making it work, and obviously learning because, when you've got famous people sitting in a room and they're talking to you about their experiences and, it creates motivation. And last year we had a lot of highly motivational people that were talking about even books, that you should read so that you can learn from, the stories. And one of those books, resonated with our son who came to the forum and attended. And we actually asked him to come and help, but he didn't. He just sat and he listened to all the discussions because he was so motivated. And we saw him engaging in a way that actually took us by surprise. And that's when we realized, okay, we need to also create a section for students and make it accessible for them to come because ultimately it's for them. So we need to, so this year we've also designed student packages because obviously it comes at a cost. We can't afford to do it for free. I wish we could. And hopefully one day we'll be in that position where we can just say to the students, come. But we've created preferential rates packages for them to be able to attend all those discussions and workshops and networking opportunities and take something from it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned about like the organization and also making sure that people experience the Cypriot tradition and the cuisines and all of that. And I'm just really interested about like what's the future for the diaspora? Like what is it that you want to create an ongoing thing, or like where do you see it going in the future?
Well, you know what, the Cyprus Diaspora Forum is for the Cypriots of the diaspora, but the people of Cyprus and the people who love Cyprus. I like saying the friends of Cyprus because Cyprus does have a lot of friends. It's a huge platform for people to come together, to look for business opportunities, to network. And it's proven to be a successful platform. And I want people to carry on with that, whether it's the next generation of Cypriots that take it over. But for the time being, I'm going to put my heart and soul into it. Because just sitting back and seeing the connections that are made and the business opportunities that come out of it is the reward that we want. Not financially, but at the end of the day, we want to see people thrive. I also have to admit that it's also about giving back. When we came to Cyprus in 2002, we left a country that was going through a lot of crime. I know that we can't class ourselves as refugees, even though some South Africans up until recently are seeking asylum in other countries because they're being murdered left, right, and center. And the difference with us is that we were able to pack up, sell our home and leave. But it's very difficult after 27 years living in a country and having to turn your back on it. And to come to a country that, yes, you visited on holiday, but let's face it, when you come to Cyprus on holiday, it's one big party. Sun, sea, eating, drinking, enjoying time with your friends. It's beautiful. But when you're living here, there's, that comes on the weekends. It doesn't come every day as it would be on a holiday. So it was very difficult. And then you see a different side of Cyprus that is more business oriented, a bit serious, and you have to become serious yourself.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about Cyprus is that it offers you the lifestyle that is second to none. It really is. And now I'm going to talk about the 340 days of sunshine. but I'm a winter person. I absolutely love winter. I love the rain. I love Rhodos. I love the snow. But the fact that you can tell somebody that, you could go up to the mountains and ski, and literally 30 minutes later, you can put your feet in the Mediterranean. People don't understand it, and yet Cyprus does. They offer that. And ultimately, the Cyprus Diaspora Forum showcases the best of Cyprus.
Yeah.
It's not about any negativity, but it is a think tank. It's obviously an opportunity for startups to come and launch their products, which is why we've partnered with Cyprus Seeds, and they're going to be doing like a launch pad at the forum. It's very much about innovation, which we've got a lot of exciting things to show this year. And we've also, and it's also about launching small scale or small medium enterprises that wouldn't have the opportunity to do so. And that's what the Cyprus Chamber of Commerce is doing. They're giving a platform to businesses that, wouldn't have the opportunity, but to present their products and their services to potential investors and to grow. So the Cyprus Diaspora Forum is the platform that gives people an opportunity to expand their business. Whether, as I said, you're a startup, a small medium enterprise, a large-scale organization, and ultimately I'd like it to continue. And the dream is to create enough opportunity on the island so that we can give back to the next generation, allow them to invest back into Cyprus, because it is all about that. Make changes, whatever they've experienced. That's why the government's also there. Tell them, talk to them, because when you know it from day to day, if you become obsessed, or not obsessed, but engrossed within the work that you're doing, sometimes it's very difficult to look outwards. And with so much nonsense that's going around in the world, you do get sidetracked. But when you listen at a forum, and there's a lot of forums that do that, don't get me wrong, it's not just our forum. Every forum that's taking place in Cyprus has meaning and has impact. And again, together, we can bring about the change we want. One forum on its own can't do that. So the Cyprus Diaspora Forum has a big role to play to bridging the gap between the Cypriots of the diaspora and the local community of Cyprus.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And we started by understanding where you grew up, what you wanted to be, how you described yourself, all the writings, the books, the screenplays, the producer, the director, I'm sure somewhere. And before we go into the final part of the podcast, maybe just hearing that, how would you describe yourself now, after you've gone through all your journey and connecting people now and focusing on this goal that you want to aspire to connect people even more and raise awareness, it seems, as well, as what Cyprus is and what it has to offer? What would you describe yourself as now?
In one word, or just in a sentence, or
in a sentence?
I think I would say it's only the beginning, because we seem to put a time limit on a lot of things, or we say that if by 21 you're not a famous singer, or if by 30 you're not this, then you're not going to make it. Absolute rubbish. I think for some people, starting out might be easy. Some people have the Midas touch that everything they do is a success. Others have to go through experiences and learn from the hardships. And I've been there, I've done it, I've got the T-shirt, as they say. But I think it's only the beginning, because the Cyprus Diaspora Forum is something that's very, very important to me. It's my baby. I live and breathe it. Obviously, we've got a huge team that's supporting it. My wife is a director that, handles certain things. We've got our deputy president who's in Australia, and I bug her every 5 minutes, and a whole team of people all over Europe and Australia and South Africa and America who always get these messages from me at odd times of the night. I think they've also understood what it's like to be part of this global family. The fact that we're privileged enough to be connected with so many people around the world and have technology that allows us to do that is the success of virtually everything out there nowadays.
Yeah.
But how would I describe myself? Can I say evolving? Is it a cliche?
Not really.
Because I'm still like finally starting to realize that, you know, as I said, what do you want to leave on your tombstone?
Yeah.
I used to say, if you don't laugh at life, life will laugh at you.
Yeah.
I think it's all about connection. And I would like my tombstone to say, let's connect. Maybe it's, you know, in the underworld, or I don't know where. But I still think that, and I do believe there is something out there that allows us to connect. So maybe some people are trying to land on Mars because they feel there's not enough space on this earth to do it. I don't know, I'm quite happy to be in Cyprus and connect with people on a daily basis. And it's amazing how, you know, we used to live with this idea that if you know, dreams only happen in Hollywood or they happen in some famous city around the world, and that nothing can happen in Cyprus. And, you know, whenever we used to grow up, we used to say, but, you know, what's happening in Cyprus?
Yeah.
George Michael was from Cyprus.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he was a famous singer. He brought the whole world to a standstill at one stage. And there's a lot of famous Cypriots that Simon Fuller is another one. Cat Stevens is another one. And the list goes on and on and on. We've got Sir Stelios, EasyJet, Yanis Christodoulou, Theo Bafitis, the founder, the CEO of Pretoman Gerard now, is also Cypriot. It's just going on and on and on. And you're thinking, wow, you know, there's just so many people making a mark. But we're learning from these people. So I would say constantly evolving, constantly learning, constantly connecting. So yeah, I'd say that, evolving, maybe. I know it's a cliche, but...
Not really. It sounds great because like what I'm hearing is the same thing, like try different things, experiment, learn, keep learning, evolve and grow and connect. Like, I've learned so much as well from like what you've shared and your passion and how you've created something from nothing, and also operating from what it seems like really a deep purpose that you're wanting everyone to aspire to be the best version of themselves and trying to give back.
Yeah, of course.
I'm really grateful for you to take the time to join us.
I thank you. And at the end of the day, we're looking forward to having you at the forum. I know that you're going to bring a lot to the table.
Absolutely.
Add a lot of value. We won't tell anybody where we've positioned you at the moment and what panel discussion. That'll be announced soon. But we're also looking forward to collaborating with you, Hassan.
Same. And before we go, we have a tradition on the podcast where we get to ask our guests a question.
Yeah.
And whatever comes to mind, just answer. And as authentic as it is.
Oh gosh.
We usually ask like, what's a motto or like some words of wisdom that you keep repeating to yourself, especially when you went through like some challenges or obstacles, something that helped you to overcome those challenges. What comes to mind when?
Easy. Okay, I have two, but I think the one was almost like an inherited motto, or, you know, basically when I was at school in South Africa, the school's motto was strenue, which means strength. And I never understood that, you know, everybody can be a lion, and they've got that potential to roar. So that was the one thing that kept me going. I always used to think I was a lion roaring through the crowd, but now I like giraffes. But anyway, it's a different story. But I think the one thing that stood by me was a saying by an Italian Latin writer called Descartes, which is cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And I think that is such an amazing motto, which I live by, because anything you put your mind to, you can achieve. And I know, again, everybody's going to say, oh, that's a cliche, and, you know, everybody uses that. But the mind is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
If you wake up this morning and you feel might be raining outside, and you think, oh, it's going to be a horrible day, it will be a horrible day.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. I go through that sometimes myself, and I wake up and I go, I'm feeling anxious. And then suddenly you have this anxiety attack, and then you go through half an hour wasting your time and then realizing, where did the time go? one of the, if I could share just a quick story with you, why that is such an important motto for me. Aristotle Onassis, who was a very famous, or in a good way or bad way, shipping magnate in Greece, he was, he went from, he was living in modern day Izmir, which was Smyrni, and obviously after the genocide, they moved to Athens, and then they lost everything, a very wealthy family. And he went to Argentina with nothing, started the cigarettes, and came back eventually. He became one of the richest men in the world. Now, when his son, eventually Aristotle Onassis was running Olympic Airways, and his son had grown up, and he said, "Dad, I want you to make me the head of Olympic Air." He turned around and he said to his son, "I'm going to give you the biggest gift." And, the next day or a few days later, he met up with his son and he gave him the gift. And the son looked at it and he said, "What is that?" It was a little black book that had nothing written in it, totally empty. So he says, "Well, you're the richest man in the world and you give me this." He says, "No, I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to tell you the most valuable life lesson you will ever get. The one thing that a rich person has, that a poor person has, and anybody in between, is time. Time cannot change for anybody. 24 hours in a day, whether you're rich or poor, that's what you've got.
Yeah.
Until you get taken." Okay, but he turned around and he said to him, "Whoever you meet in life, write his name down in this book and write how much time they are worth next to that, so that when you see them again, you'll remember if they're a time waster or if they're a person that you need to connect to." Now, some people might say, "Well, that's terrible. How can you, but sort of, nowadays we have a phone in our hands, which is our little black book. So when someone phones and you see a name of somebody and you think, "Oh, do I answer that?" Your mind has already assessed that, that person is a time waster. And you know that it's not that you dislike the person, it's not that you mean harm, but you know that if you take that call, it's going to take 30 minutes of your time that you're not going to get ever again.
Yeah.
So you make a judgment call and you say, "Well, I'm not going to answer, and if it's anything urgent, they'll message me." So in a way, I think we live by that.
Yeah.
But because time is valuable, someone said to me, "If I give you $100 million today, would you take it?" And obviously you'd say, "Yes, I'll take it."
Yeah.
But they said to them, "Take it, but tomorrow you won't be alive."
Yeah.
So would you take the money then? Because you think, okay, I could take the 100 million now, but I've literally got how many hours to live?
Yeah.
And I'm a millionaire for a few hours, but tomorrow I'm not here. You wouldn't take the money. Yeah. So what does that say? It says that time is more valuable than anything else. And what you choose to do with that time is important. I'm not saying just, like tell the guy to go and take a hike. But at the end of the day, we have to make a judgment sometimes whether there's people that bring out the best in us and people that bring out the worst.
Yeah.
And that brings it back to how, I live my life. I don't want to exclude anybody from it. But if I see that, because there are some people you meet that are a one-way street, you say, "Okay, I wish you well, but thank you very much. I'm going to move on."
That's it.
Or there's people that bring out the best in you. Now, I'm not saying financially. I could sit with Hassan right now and laugh until 2:00 in the morning. I would definitely see Hassan again.
Yeah.
Or I could sit with Peter down the street and, I'm going to feel I'm going to pick up on his toxic energy. It's going to demotivate me and it's not going to bring out the best in me. So that's why you have to make a judgment call. I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
And you've got to make that call constantly every day. So that would be my motto, and it is my motto, and it's something I live by, because time is valuable. We all have it, but we don't suddenly. And then you think, okay, well, it's time wasted.
Yeah.
Having said that, on a final note, I never look back. It's important. There's a reason why in the Bible they say don't look back.
Yeah.
If you don't look back, if you're constantly looking back, then you're going to be going back.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to keep looking forward. So, I think therefore I am. And I think, That's why I wrote a book saying, I am what I am, just deal with it. That was another book I wrote. It's all about thinking correctly. Okay, we are going to make mistakes, but living the moment, taking appreciation of the time that you've got, spending it with the right people that bring out the best in you, but not wishing any harm on others, and making decisions that will get you to the next place.
That's great. Thank you so much. There's so much value in that, and great story as well about the Black Book. And I'd never thought of that way, but it's so true, because there's so much energy exchange, and so important to have that.
So, I mean, take it from a guy that was a millionaire. So, exactly. We look at these people that are millionaires and we aspire to be like them. But, okay, sometimes they have to have given up something. In Aristotle's case, it was giving up on family time. He sacrificed one thing or the other. It's what you choose to be as well, Hassan. Like my wife always says, I could have had a career. She could have been this high-powered, but she is a high-powered woman. Yeah. But she chose to have a career and a family. So it's a balance of both. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong to what you choose to be. Yeah. If that's what brings out the best in you, then that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for coming.
It's
been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for everything that you've shared with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to seeing you at the forum. And again, it's just great to connect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for watching Present Potential. And as always, remember that today is the most important day of your life. Until next time. Thank you for watching and listening to Present Potential. If you found value in this episode, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Join the conversation in the comments and let us know your biggest takeaway. If you'd like to listen to other inspiring stories, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure to also follow us on Instagram under Present Potential Podcast, where you get to see behind the scenes and engage with us.